Hello everybody, this is the Edgerunner. The Edgerunner is the level 100 vehicle for this Season 2, and it's a pretty cool vehicle overall. Every prestige of it actually looks pretty good. No matter what prestige it is, it somehow manages to look really cool. Like the first version, it looks very clean, except for the back. I think the back kind of makes it look a little weird, but otherwise, it looks pretty good. One thing I also really like about this vehicle is the police lights on it. This thing has some very nice police lights. I believe it may be the only vehicle in the game that actually has original police lights. But other than that, overall this vehicle is just amazing. And if we just look at the different upgrades of it, as you can see, these are actually visible cosmetic upgrades. Well, if we spawn our commutator here, there it is. Okay. As you can see, if we got someone with a normal commutator, it would look very similar. The commutator didn't get very many cosmetic changes in Season 1. It was kind of just the same overall shape, and it didn't really look any different when you prestiged it. But whenever you prestiged this, it always got a new feature that was visible. So at first it was just a hood accessory. Now you got body armor, and you got these headlights up here. Upgrade again, you got these things, which I really like on it. You upgrade it again, you get this body kit, which is awesome. I believe it's also the only vehicle that has that. There might be one more, I'm not entirely sure. And then of course, there's a gun. That's what we're going to be reviewing today, mostly. So if we get in the car, you can see that this gun is pretty much like the Rhino. I believe it might be a little bit faster at turning. But yeah, so like we have it here, and over there, and over there, and over there. So it's not an instant turning like the, what do you call it, the 066 Terminator, but it's still pretty good, especially the fact that it shoots so fast and does 70 damage to ground vehicles. So it shoots this fast and does 70 damage to vehicles every hit, and of course 35 damage to players every hit. I believe it may do more damage to aerial vehicles, somewhat like the Stinger, but I'm not entirely sure yet. I will play a clip just to prove myself whether I'm right or wrong. I really like the drifting on this vehicle. I'd say it's a good match for the Reaper. The Reaper is a great drifting car, and this is pretty good. I'm not doing really great right now, but like it's really nice. It's really smooth. The speed is pretty good. Like this is that sweet spot in speed for drifting, and this car has it. If we drive around, you can see that this thing goes pretty fast with nitro. It's pretty decent if you're like chasing other cars around. One thing I was kind of sad about, but kind of makes sense, is the fact that this thing doesn't have customizable suspension or toppers. Well, the topper kind of makes sense, but the suspension, I don't know. I guess that makes sense, especially since you already have this wide body kit. I think it would look kind of goofy with but otherwise it just looks really good. I do like the boost as well. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but this boost looks really cool, and it's one of the few that like shoots upward from the back. Might be the only vehicle, might be another one. But yeah. So now I'm gonna get into some tips and tricks for PvP using this vehicle. So, using this gun is a bit of a challenge, especially with the speed of this car and whatnot. So, there's a few scenarios that you'll probably be in. One of those being that you will be moving and trying to shoot someone or something. So, obviously, if you're chasing someone, you're just going to want to try to aim at them as much as possible, which shouldn't be too hard, especially if they're ahead of you, because you can You probably won't miss if they're ahead of you. You won't miss very much. But if they're on your side, that's when things get interesting. Don't try to aim at them while they're on your side. Instead, try to pass them, and once your cursor, like, let's pretend this lamppost is something we're trying to hit. We're gonna go, as soon as our cursor lands, we fire, and we'll get a pretty direct shot on it. As you can see, I destroyed that lamppost. Meanwhile, on this one, we're trying to hit it. I mean, I hit it because it has pretty big area damage, but as you can see, trying to hit these lampposts like this isn't really working because of the slowness of the turning speed on this vehicle. But if I were to just leave it still, I would be able to hit every single lamppost I come across. That is, if I had good reaction time. But yeah, besides that, this car is just great overall. And that's where the next thing comes in. You can hold guns while using this car. Yeah, it's pretty nice. You can hold an automatic or like a Stinger or something while holding this, and you can like easily take down vehicles no matter what situation you're in. So if like one car is zipping around you, you can still hit him with your automatic, and then once you get his tire shot out or whatever, then you can finish him off with the launcher on this, which is really nice. And once, of course, you're done with your gun, that's when the next thing shows up. You may like this, you may not, just depends on personal preference. But if we get in this car, we'll see that we have this cursor here, which can be annoying, honestly. It just triggers my OCD like really bad. But if you hold out a gun and then let go, as you can see, that cursor's gone. But you can also not really tell where it's gonna hit unless you're standing still, of course. When you're standing still, you should always just try to aim at someone or something instead of like just holding it still when you're moving, which that wouldn't make any sense. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Another thing I'd like to point out about this car is the fact that it's very hard to damage yourself. If you like go up right next to a wall and shoot it, for some reason it will sometimes not do explosive damage. Okay, never mind, I guess. As you can see, if there's no walls around, you're gonna have a hard time hitting yourself. It just doesn't really happen. As you can see, when you're up close to something, it doesn't really seem to do explosive damage often. As you can see, I'm trying to hit this, and it's not doing explosive damage, and therefore it's not hurting myself. So that's a pretty cool feature that I'm glad they added. Another thing I'd like to point out is this thing. Another thing I would like to point out is the fact that this thing is a harpoon gun. And it doesn't actually really function like a harpoon gun is supposed to. If you know what a harpoon is, you'd know that it's basically something that you throw. But the thing is, most harpoons have like a rope or something attached. And the whole point of a harpoon is to like stick it into something and then be able to like pull it or ride it or whatever. So something I would really like to see added to this is like an actual harpoon that you can like pull people around. That would just be really funny, because you'd just be able to shoot at someone and then race off and pull them along with you, because that's honestly what it should do, rather than just being a high fire rate gun. That's not what this thing looks like. So either they should change the design of this from a harpoon gun, or they should make it function like a harpoon gun. That would actually be a pretty unique feature, just being able to grapple onto vehicles and pull them along. That would just be awesome. And that's pretty much what a harpoon gun is kind of supposed to do. Like if you've seen the new Avatar movie, you would have seen that. Like that's kind of what harpoon guns are for. They're just supposed to like pull things or have them pull you. That's kind of what it's for. So my overall review of this vehicle is that I really like it. In fact, it's probably my favorite vehicle in Mad City right now. Now, I know a lot of you A10 fans are probably like, no, A10's way better. A10's just boring to use. Like, you can get a few kills with it, and then you're just doing the same thing over and over again. Meanwhile, you can actually get some action out of this. Like, you can, like, when you're using the A10, you're kind of just unstoppable, and you can't really do anything except kill people. You didn't have to cut me off. But this is probably the best vehicle in the game, in my opinion. It just looks really good. It is really good. That gun is amazing. And this vehicle is just awesome. Another thing I'd like to point out, this is pretty much just bragging, is that I am the first person to legitimately get this thing in Mad City, I believe. There may be someone else, but I'm pretty sure I was the first person to legitimately get it. It was this morning on January 4th that I got it. And I don't believe anybody else got it legitimately. I know Black Fyro and the Ultra Noob got it, but they used a glitch that gave them like 200,000 XP an hour, and they just got it in like 10 hours. So that's not legitimate. And then there's of course people who bought XP. And that's not really legitimate either. So yeah, I was probably the first person. It took me about 60 hours. If you want to know my grind method, I'm not going to make my own video about it because Degree already made a very detailed video about it. I'm going to link it in the description. He's a really good channel, and I'd recommend watching him, especially if you want some new tips and tricks on this game. But otherwise, this thing is really cool, and I would actually recommend like grinding up to it. In my opinion, like Commutator wasn't something I would recommend grinding up to, but this is something like actually kind of worth it. So yeah, it took me 30 consecutive hours. Like, I didn't do it 60 hours straight, but it just took me 60 hours using my grind method. And yeah. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you, and see you next time.